first time driving around number 30 Broad Street, 1022. 13, Sergeant 1 Essential.
Welcome back to Simply Sakura, my friends. I hope you are all doing well today. My name is Gary Sakura, and this is my motovlog and true crime stories. I simply drive around on my motorbike and tell true crime stories. If you're new here, greetings, and I'm so glad that you stopped by. If you are interested in true crime and love seeing a different, unique type of motovlog, then I suggest that you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on my true crime stories. Once again, it's a nice and chilly day here in Panama City, Florida. Absolutely another fantastic morning for a ride. Right now, the temperature reading on my display reads 48 degrees. And honestly, I'm loving this cold weather for a change. I do hope that everyone had a good Christmas and you were able to spend some time with your families over this unusual holiday season. I can't believe 2021 is already here. And 2020 certainly has flown by really fast, and that probably was a good thing. All I can say is that I do hope that this new year will be better than what was thrown at us in 2020. With that, let's start with our first crime story. A family is mourning after a 34-year-old pregnant woman, Sarah Lewis, was killed in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on the night of 20 December 2020. Just 4 days away from celebrating the birth of her baby, due on Christmas Day. An Army Special Operations combat medic at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, killed himself last Sunday night after an altercation that left his pregnant wife dead. Staff Sergeant Keith Lewis, 31, pictured here, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at his family's home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Sarah Lewis was shot and killed by her husband, Staff Sergeant Lewis. Sarah Lewis was taken to the hospital after sustaining gunshot wounds, but she and her unborn child later died shortly after arriving at the hospital. Family members said Sarah was due to have her fourth baby girl on Christmas Day, in which she was planning on naming her unborn child Isabella. It was a complete shock. It's like a horror movie. She had a smile that would light up the room. I can't explain it. She was vivacious, fun, lighthearted, and easygoing, said Sarah's aunt. Sarah Lewis served in the Air Force and became a paramedic. Sarah served until she had her first child. Sarah had 2 older daughters with her first husband. Her second husband was Staff Sergeant Keith Lewis, a member of the Armed Special Operations Command stationed at Fort Bragg. The 2 older daughters were living with Sarah's first husband, and thank God were not present during the shooting. Sarah and Keith Lewis had a 3-year-old daughter together, in addition to the baby that was going to be due on this past Christmas Day. The couple's 3-year-old daughter was at the scene at the time of the incident, but she was not injured. That daughter is now in care of local family members. Investigators believe Sarah was gunned down before Keith turned the gun on himself and died at the scene from an apparent suicide. Keith Lewis was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and had previously threatened suicide in a similar situation 2.5 years ago. To cope with his PTSD, Keith drank heavily, and when he drank, he would completely lose it. 2.5 years ago, Sarah was fortunate enough to get away from Keith. She went to a safe distance from the situation and called the police to get some help. By the time the police came, Keith was sitting in the backyard with a rifle in his mouth, ready to commit suicide. The police at that time were able to talk to Keith into not hurting himself, and were told by his wife Sarah that Keith was on PTSD medication and would turn violent when he would consume alcohol. Despite the loss of her niece and her unborn child, Sarah's aunt said that she forgives the man who took them away. Sarah's aunt said that Keith was obviously very troubled, and there is nothing in my heart but forgiveness. Sarah's aunt said she hoped her niece's death is a message to others dealing with domestic abuse to take it seriously and to get help. Keith Lewis, a native of Saratoga, Florida, joined the Army in 2007, and he completed initial training at Fort Bragg, Georgia, before completing airborne school. Keith deployed once from 2009 to 2010 with the 4th Brigade, 25th Infantry Division Airborne as part of the war in Afghanistan. Certainly, more needs to be done in across our country to help those who are suffering from PTSD. If you know of anyone or yourself who is suffering from PTSD, please reach out by calling the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. This is a toll-free hotline which is available 24/7 for both veterans and for their loved ones. Our next true crime story takes place in Pullman, Washington, and has to be categorized as the dumbest criminal at Christmas. A real-life Grinch was caught on camera stealing presents from the Pullman Police Department. The incident occurred as a 20-year-old man was being released from jail after having been arrested for underage drinking. I have included the video so you can watch it while I tell the story. Surveillance cameras in the lobby of the Pullman Police Department captured this entire bizarre incident. The video begins with our young man standing at the window where he collected his belongings prior to being released from jail. The young man begins to walk towards the exit of the building. He stops to pick up a piece of paper on the ground that may or may not have belonged to him. Next, he proceeds to go over to the Christmas tree that was set up at the front doors of the police station. The video then shows the young man bending over and picking up several of the wrapped Christmas gifts that were under the tree. Then the young man stands up and walks out the door as all those Christmas gifts belong to him. Once outside, the Grinch discovers that the packages that he had just stolen weren't actually gifts at all. One of the packages were completely empty. One of the gifts that he'd taken was a tissue box, and the final box that he took contained women's feminine hygiene products. The video then shows the frustrated Grinch looking at his stolen booty. And then he starts flinging the boxes to the sidewalk in total disgust. A few moments later, the man who was driving the car which was arriving to pick up the Grinch from jail, ran up to the sidewalk. He picked up the discarded fake Christmas packages. The video then shows the young man stacking the fake Christmas presents neatly and placing them on the ground beside the front doors of the police department. Then the young man appears to look up at the lens of the security cameras, and he simply gives a quick wave to indicate that the stolen items have been returned. The Pullman police said they do not intend to pursue any charges against the Grinch. Our third crime story of the day has to be one of the most bizarre stories that I came across in many years. A Florida substitute teacher, Heather Carpenter, age 42, pictured here, has been charged with third-degree felony mischief after she smeared, now get this, after she smeared poop and pee across a pavilion where a young student's birthday party was being held. Heather Carpenter, who was hired in October of 2017 as a substitute teacher at Philippi Shores Elementary in Sarasota, Florida, admitted to the disturbing December 1st act that took place at the local park. One of the parents said, "You could see fecal matter on the ground, and it just smelled of urine. You could probably smell it a mile away. She would pour it out of a cup, and then she would wipe it on the table. It was like a mixture of urine and poop." Carpenter immediately took off in her minivan shortly after the incident, but she was shortly arrested soon afterwards by the sheriff deputies. The police discovered that her boss, Principal Allison Foster, had been planning to hold the children's Christmas party at the local park, with Carpenter's own child among the children invited. Carpenter's reasoning was to settle the score with Philippi Shores Elementary Principal Allison Foster, who was hosting a party for his daughter. Carpenter said that she mounted the dirty protest after being left upset by the way Principal Foster had handled the complaint that she made while at work. A horrified parent, Roy Baldwin, had an idea of what punishment Carpenter should face if she was convicted. Baldwin said she should be stuck cleaning bathrooms for quite a while. Give her a chance to really get up close and personal. The witnesses saw Carpenter wearing rubber gloves and a face mask at the time she smeared poop and pee across several picnic tables and 2 grills. Carpenter's vandalism forced park workers to spend $2,300 on replacing new wooden tables, grills, and the cleaning. Carpenter had been charged with criminal mischief over $1,000. She was free on bond, but is barred from teaching, pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. Anyway, this concludes today's Motovlog and True Crime Stories with Simply Sakura. I do hope you found these stories interesting. There are plenty more Motovlog and True Crime Stories coming very soon. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you have any comments, I highly encourage that you leave them down below. When the bells ring in this new year, may 2021 be filled with good cheer, good fortune, and peace. Wishing everyone a fantastic year for 2021. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next year.